and it's hard, but you know, at the end of the day, you've just got to keep pushing. And if you really believe in the product or what you're building or what your dreams are for your company, then that's what gets you through.
You're listening to the 9 to Survive podcast, where we speak to the most inspiring entrepreneurs of Australia. I'm your host, Alex Whiteside, the CEO of EasyCompanies. Running your own business can be quite daunting and scary. We're here to show you how to face those fears and help you build your dream today. We listen to the innovators, the game changers, and the thought leaders who have built their startups from the ground up. Hear what makes them tick, how they've overcome their own failures, and be inspired to take your own leap of faith and ignite your passion for business. So I'm here today with Ben Stokes, the founder and CEO of Social Table. Social Table is an app that Ben created out of his own passion and desire to help people meet one another and get offline and really get a sense of connection and genuine, authentic connection. So Social Table run events all across Australia in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, and they're soon to be in New York. So on today's show, we hear about how Ben faces many of his challenges and managed to get the business to where it is, in that recently a US venture firm has invested in Social Table. Thanks for joining, Ben.
No problem.
It's great to have you on the 9 to Survive podcast. And thanks for coming in. And look, it'd be really good to kind of start off and just try to understand like where you got the idea for Social Table, because it sounds like a fantastic idea.
Yeah, sure.
So where did that come from?
Yeah, so Social Table was an idea that I guess I personally needed myself. So I was living overseas for 4 years, and while I was there, all of my friends started getting married and having kids, which is awesome for them. Like, I think that's great. But what that meant was that our Friday night dinners turned into Saturday mornings in the park. And I guess the problem with that is that I still like to go out for dinner and, you know, maybe get drunk every now and then. And that sort of changed, the priorities changed of my group of friends. And so I realized that, okay, well, I still want to meet people. And then as an adult, it's like, it's hard. How do you do that? So I struggled initially to work out where to meet people. You know, I tried dating apps, but that wasn't really my purpose or intention. And then I tried Meetup, but that also didn't work either because people weren't really showing up. They were saying they were going, but weren't necessarily there. So then after that, I did a bit of research and realized that I wasn't the only person that felt like this, that priorities had changed in groups of friends and that I wanted to meet people. So from there, yeah, I set it up based off that.
That's awesome. So how long ago did you start this?
So our first event was on January 12th, 2018. So,
so not that
long ago. So about a year and a half ago, yeah.
Wow, okay. And what was the first event like?
Yeah, so the first event actually quite random. So this was my tester event, I suppose you would say. I got 7 friends from different parts of my life to go to dinner, and I organized it all and said I was going to be there, and then I didn't show up. And so it was 7 people that had the inner connection of me, but weren't necessarily part of that. And then I sent out an email before, which is what I do now with every event, with everyone's first name and a list of random facts about the group. And their job was to find out who the random fact belonged to over dinner. And so that sort of helped bring the group together. They had a good time. And then that was how I was able to get some research about, okay, well, can people go to dinner with people they don't know if they've got some sort of common connection?
You literally just connected just random people.
Yeah.
Put them in a room. It's like a social experiment. Put them in a room together.
Yep.
And just saw how it kind of worked out.
Exactly.
Did you film it or anything? Or?
Didn't film it, but I really wish I had been a fly on the wall, to be honest.
Yeah, true. That's what I was thinking, to just observe it.
I decided that I would completely do this completely random. So I actually wasn't even around at that point. So I was overseas at the time. And so I got these people together to do that and saw how it went.
What was the feedback from that first event?
And the feedback was that they were surprised at how easy it was to talk to people they'd never met before. And then they also said that, you know, it was great because they wouldn't have done it. They were completely outside of their comfort zone, but they felt safe because they all had me as a common connection. So
true. So it would have been a dinner party, just everyone talking about you, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously everyone likes to be talked about. No, I'm kidding. No, it was more that they were set up in every single way not to have to worry about me being there or not being there. And you know, I told them all about what my idea was anyway beforehand in terms of what the concept of the company was. and then they kind of were part of the initial group.
Was the company running at that stage, or was this
Not really.
Okay.
It
So
was
that was like what we'd call like an MVP, right? Like test it, try out the concept.
I guess
put
you
it
could
out
say
there.
that. I feel like we're still, I guess, going through phases of understanding our customers. And I feel like now we're at a point a year and a half later where we understand, okay, well, what works, what doesn't work, why does it work, how do we best connect people, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to start off the business, though. I mean, that's what I would always recommend to founders. Like, test out the prototype, just get it out there before you build the whole business around. Right.
100%. Like, what's the saying? Try fast, fail fast.
That's it.
And if you don't know that you've got something that works or doesn't work, keep trying until you get like a nice recipe for it, and then keep going.
And you would have got instant feedback off that to help you build the brand and
completely. Like I am a massive believer in feedback and using that feedback to help dictate where I take the company further. And particularly with customers, they are, for me, the people that are buying the product. They like the product, why they like it. Getting that feedback constantly has allowed me to create a product that people really love and understand their motivations behind why they're actually liking my product as well.
Yeah. So after every social table event, you put out like a feedback survey?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
How do you gather that feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. So after every meal that we do, we send out a feedback form where people, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought about the food, what they thought about the restaurant, but then also about what they thought about the concept of social table itself. And then they're able to give feedback on if there was a particular issue or problem that came up. And then beyond that, they're able to then put in their details to actually share with the rest of the group again as well. So it's a good way to make sure that people do fill it back as well. And they give that feedback.
And that helps. That's helped you like evolve the brand and the business. And,
absolutely. So I think, one thing I realized was about price. So pricing different options and making sure people felt like it covered a larger scale. So when I first started the business, I was thinking it was going to be based around more fine dining options. And then I realized that the food actually is secondary to what I do. That's not the purpose of why people are coming to Social Table. They're coming to meet others. So I need to broaden that out from, thinking people are going to spend $100 on every meal to being our cheapest event's $35 and our most expensive event is $165. So giving people a really broad
just in case they do like that fine dining option.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But remembering that they're not there for that necessarily. That's an experience that they like, but it's not the whole purpose. The whole purpose mainly is because they want to meet people.
Yeah, they want to make that connection. So like, exactly. what would they expect from a social table event? Like what do you think most people would be looking for? Yeah,
well, most people would say that they are there to meet people. So that's the main reason. And the second reason is because of the food options. I've got a pretty big spread about why people come. It could be because they're newly relocated to a new city or they're traveling. Could be because they're there to make business connections. They need new friends, or alternatively, they are there to find someone to call their special someone. But we make it very clear that we're not a dating app. We are for whatever reason that you want to show up, and we're more about connections. And if dating happens, that's awesome, but it's not the purpose of going.
So people can just rock up with any reason just to make that social connection. That doesn't have to be justified, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And I think that makes it, because if it was a dating app or a dating product, I find that people come with expectation, and with the expectation, I will 100% let you down. Whereas if you come there with no agenda, you'll be pleasantly surprised every time you go.
That's awesome. It sounds like a good setup.
Thanks.
And I think it was a pity I wasn't able to make a social table event.
Yeah.
I was looking to go, but I'm sure that will happen in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does sound like an incredible business, and
thank you.
I love meeting new people. So
thanks. Yeah. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. That's good. And is this your first time running a business?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So how does that feel?
So I'll tell you, honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. But
that's good. It's better than knowing what you're doing.
But I must admit, I have never learned so much in my entire life than starting this. I learned a lot about what I, not only what people need and how to operate a business, but also what I'm personally capable of. And I think that has really given me a lot of confidence going forward as well. I've made plenty of mistakes, and I'm not ashamed of that either. I think one of the things that what those mistakes have taught me is that, okay, this is what I need to do now, and this is how I can fix it, and this is what I now have learned for future as well.
Yeah, that's right. Like, what do you think some of the biggest like, what would you say the biggest challenges you faced were during the business? Like you said, you made a few mistakes.
Sure. I think some of the mistakes I've made is, I guess, putting a lot of pressure on people on other people. I think for me, like as a founder, I think you start to realize that not everybody's going to love your product as much as you do, and not going to be as passionate about it as you are. And so it's getting to a point where you then have to learn, okay, well, what's going to make somebody passionate about your product, and why are they?
Do you mean the team or the
team,
customers? Okay.
The team, but then also customers as well. So, customers, they love it, but then at the same time, if there's something they don't like, making sure, like I said, about feedback, getting that feedback so I can change things. So I think that has been something I've learned. And so challenge for me in that has been, remembering that this is a business, not me and as a person, that people necessarily always get challenges with as well. And so going outside of that, going, okay, well, what are the things that the business needs to do better so that I can then continue to grow it?
Yeah. So you feel that the biggest challenge for yourself has been as a founder, like learning to kind of be a leader, would you say?
Yeah. So it's been about being a leader, but it's also, I guess, being able to separate myself from the business as well, because you've got to remember to do that. Otherwise, you take on a lot of the criticism personally when it's not actually you that's being criticized.
Yeah,
it's the
I know.
business itself.
Yeah. It's that's it. I mean, how do you what techniques are you using to separate yourself from the business? Or...
Yeah, well, I guess I went into this and it describes Social Table as an extension of my personality in a lot of ways, because Social Table, I love meeting new people and I love experiences and going out to dinner, but that's not my personality. It's not me as a person. There's so much more to me than that. So realizing that this is just a business that has to put in structure, that has to put in these certain bits and pieces to make sure that the end result is a good result. So being able to understand what takes that to happen, and then for myself, just making sure that I take out time for myself when I need it as well. So, like being a startup founder has its challenges, as everyone knows, and you've got to make sure that you do look after yourself.
It's a big topic right now, isn't it? Burnout.
Yeah,
like,
burnout.
Everyone's talking about it, and
I can tell you, I felt it, and I know it exists, and it's hard. And I'm very thankful. I've got a lot of great support around me that sort of got me through some of those times. But at the end of the day, you've just got to keep pushing. And if you really believe in the product or what you're building or what your dreams are for your company, then that's what gets you through.
Well, that's what I always say burnout is, like a test of faith. Like, are you really committed to this business? And how far are you willing to go? It's not to push yourself or force it, but it's
like it takes time as well. I think that's the other thing. Like, I went into it thinking it would be a lot, not necessarily as hard as what it has been in certain ways, but the challenges I've felt have made me realize that I am doing the right thing, and the feedback I'm getting shows me that as well.
Yeah, it's the little things that guide you along the way, isn't it?
Yeah,
because there's no overnight success. You can look at any business. No. Every founder's been through it.
I think when you're I'm in my early 30s and thinking that I should be better set up in my life than what I am right now, but at the same time, like I've sacrificed a lot to create Social Table, and now I'm starting to see the benefits of that as well.
Yeah,
but I can tell you that it's definitely been challenging at times.
Of course. And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's anyone looking to get into business. It is challenging, but would you say it's worth it in the end? Like, would you say?
100%. Yeah. Like it makes me realize that I've created something that people actually want and need. And I think that for me has been something I'm really proud of. And then on the other side of that, like it has taught me that I've got so much more resilience than I ever thought possible. I've been able to push through some of the hardest challenges I ever thought I'd ever face, and I'm now standing tall on the other side of that.
That's it. And like you just so you just landed, well, you were saying before, you landed a US accelerator, right?
I did, yeah. I found out on Friday night.
That's some pretty big news.
It's amazing.
Celebrations
actually.
In the office, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to say that I've got picked out of 5,000 applicants to go. There's only 5 people who got chosen.
Wow.
And I'll be the next cohort of Start Out Growth Lab in San Francisco. It's a 6-month accelerator. And yeah, it's kind of crazy, like, to think that they chose me. But it also shows me that people are seeing what the problems I'm fixing is a larger problem globally, not just a localized problem in Australia, or what I felt for me.
Yeah, it's not just isolated here, is it?
No. And I felt like, when I started, I felt like it was just a problem I personally had. But then I realized that more people have it. And then now I'm seeing it on a global scale, that this is something that maybe I can help fix. And that would be a complete honor.
Why do you think it is that they chose you? Like five out of 5,000, that's a 1 in 1,000, thing. What do you think it is that they saw, or the potential in your business that they saw?
I think it's the fact that, so when I spoke to them about why they chose me, they said that they liked my drive and passion for helping fix a problem, but also they looked at understanding how I set up the business and looking at the business model I created and why it works, and looking at, okay, is this something that can actually grow and scale effectively? And they back me, which is also kind of cool. So yeah.
Is there any advice, like just briefly put out there to anyone who's like looking to get into a US accelerator, or just an accelerator in general?
Yeah, for sure. Like my advice is apply. The one thing that I was often scared about and often felt like I wasn't ready to do was to put my brand and put my name out there, because I was nervous about it, or shy, or didn't back myself enough. And then this one I looked it up and I was like, actually, you know what? I think I can get this. And I put in my application, and I worked really hard on making sure my application was very detailed. I don't think that they could miss anything that I was trying to put forward. And then I got an email to say that I had a phone call with them. So I had like 3 phone calls. And then after that, I waited and waited and waited for any sort of form of them saying yes or no. And finally I got a yes. I got in.
That's awesome. So, yeah.
And
so that's the vision of the company now, take it overseas and kind of global expansion in that sense.
Absolutely. I think Social Table isn't a localized problem, as I was saying. So social isolation isn't an issue here. It's an issue everywhere. In the UK and Canada, they both put a minister for loneliness in the last 12 months. And that for me is a sign to say that people are feeling what I'm trying to fix. And so if I can start growing and scaling it so that more people can have the opportunity to meet others and connect, then I think that's my goal. My vision for the company is that nobody should have to eat dinner alone if they don't want to. And so if I can make it so that people feel like they've got an option, then I've won my goal. Yeah,
it's definitely more fun eating with other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do like that self time too, like just going and sitting in a restaurant, and like they're both good.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Like if you want that time by yourself, you absolutely take it. But if you don't want to sit alone and you feel like there's no other option, I want to make sure that Social Table is that in for you at the table.
Yeah, it's nice. So so the moment you decided you wanted to run Social Table, what was going through your head? Like, were there fears? Did you ring your family? Like what was that moment?
I didn't, to be honest, I had this idea that I just wanted to put out there that, I felt like there were challenges that I was facing personally. And I felt like if I'm feeling this, other people would feel it as well. So I got some advice from other friends who are startup founders. My friend Matt, for example, was in San Francisco. He is the founder of Schedulo. We were really close. And so I spoke to him a lot about it at that time, saying, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? How do you think I should set this up? And sort of like bounced a lot of ideas off him. And then also some other key advisors I have. Kelly, for example, she was a mentor from a business point of view, and I spoke to her a lot about it as well. And so she's now one of my key advisors in the company. And so for her, it was all about understanding, okay, well, what works, what doesn't work, why, and she challenges me a lot on that.
So there weren't any like major fears that you had in terms of starting the business?
Challenges and fears, so I've been living in San Francisco for 2 years, so I'd be working in startups for some time. And so for me, I understood a little bit about that and what those challenges were. I guess, was I fearful? I guess it is scary putting yourself out there. I haven't been paid in 2 years. Do you know what that's like? Yeah. And so for that, looking at that, going, okay, well, let's try and work out what that is and how to do that.
Yeah. Nice.
I guess that's the biggest fear I've had, is that, feeling like I wasn't necessarily going to get it right, but at the same time, I'm the sort of person that flies by the seat of their pants anyway.
Yeah. So you just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
That's a good attitude. So what would you say the biggest challenges or the biggest challenges you're facing are now, like in the business?
Yeah, for sure. So now it's about scaling and growing it. And so I have bootstrapped Social Table to date. So I haven't had any funding yet. And that has been challenging, I suppose, because it's almost like it's been limiting in a lot of ways. So now that we're in this process, we've been accepted in this accelerator. Our focus is to start fundraising heavily to make sure that we have the right product, the right fit, and then being able to market and scale it correctly. So that's what the challenge right now is, just making sure that we get that funding to be able to take us to the next step.
Yeah. So that funding is going to allow like the global expansion, as you said.
Correct. Yeah.
And like where, if it is US the first step, do you have visions? You said you have visions for this to go worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start with the US. So we've got San Francisco, New York, and LA sort of earmarked. We already have events in San Francisco and New York happening now. And then outside of that, we're looking at Austin, Chicago, and Florida, because they're the next 3 major food points. And then from there, we'll be focusing on London, Hong Kong, and Singapore.
Oh, nice. So, I mean, let's jump in and find out. Like, I know that, I mean, many say that entrepreneurs are either born or they kind of learn along the way.
Yeah, sure.
Did you always have an entrepreneurial passion when you were growing up? Like, what was your experience?
So I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I think I had to find that out. So it wasn't necessarily that I had this passion or goal straight away to do something like this, but I always knew that I had a purpose to do something that was bigger than what I am as well. So if that makes sense. So I guess I'm very fortunate. Like I probably not have had the most easiest backgrounds in terms of I was abandoned at a hospital when I was 2 months old, taken to an orphanage where I was from 2 months to 1.5, whereas adopted by people in Tassie where I grew up. My parents are awesome, but I'm very different than them as well. I grew up on a farm, and so like 1,000 acres of beef and dairy, and then I'm like intellectual, not at all a farm boy. And so
do they have a business mindset?
Yeah, they definitely do. So my parents did rural property development, so they'd buy rundown farms, do them up and sell them for profit, which they do really well for themselves, which I'm really proud of. And I think that has given me that model of that mindset of working really, really hard, making a difference, and then being able to reap the rewards of that. And so I think that from their point of view helped me go to where I am now.
And how do they feel about you running your business now?
Yeah, I think, I think my parents are, they're proud of me for sure, but they do like the stability that comes from a normal job rather than a startup. But hey, like they also see that, they've been really proud to see of the achievements that I've made. And, like last week I was in the Sydney Morning Herald, for example, and that for them, I'm like, I was just written up in the biggest paper in the country, and for them, they were like, wow, that's pretty incredible. And they love what I do. They don't necessarily understand it exactly because
have they been to a Social Table event?
No, they haven't actually. Yeah. But I think that the thing is, my parents is they are very conservative and very very quiet, and they're compared to me, who's completely outgoing. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but they are definitely people that I turn to and ask questions to a lot, because they've done really well in business themselves.
Yeah. Nice. So that's good. So I mean, would you say that you've hired a team now, right? So you've got a team behind you.
That's correct.
What would you say the challenges you face in terms of being a founder, like a leader? Like I know it can be quite challenging if you've never learned those skills, or even if you have, like displaying them. What would you say that is?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is open communication, and making sure that you have that at all times, even in the good and bad. I think that, and then the other part of that is making sure that your team feels valued as well. Making sure that I recognize hard work, and that we celebrate our achievements as a team. Because I think that I know that it's not me that's making sure that this business operates all the time. There's a whole team of people behind me that are helping me push this business forward, and being able to recognize them is really important.
Like, what are the things that you do to value the team?
Sure. So we go out to dinner a lot together, obviously. Drinks. When people join the team, I make sure I send them a bottle of their favorite alcohol as a thank you. Not to say that we drink a lot at Social Table, but it is.
Sounds like it.
No. I also, I make sure that I acknowledge them, and in like emails, at the end of each year, I send an email out and actually list what each person has done for me in the team, in terms of advisors as well as people who are part of the team, in an email that goes out to everyone, including other advisors as well.
Yeah, nice. And what would you say like in terms of valuing the team, how do you find the right people to join the company culture?
Yeah, it's all about, to be honest, for me, it's about feel. I've got to, and using my intuition based on that. Like, I've got to know that I'm going to be able to get on with you. I have to know that you're someone that I can joke with, but then also someone that works hard as well. And I think finding those people isn't necessarily easy. Like, I've had people who have come in and have had big ideas about their understanding of what a startup is, and then realizing that to actually being in a startup, it's not just about coming up with ideas, it's actually getting in and doing the hard work as well.
So you're finding people who your decision is an intuitive based decision.
Yeah.
Do you use any other criteria, or is that?
Yeah, sure. So when I was living in San Francisco, I worked for a company called Lever, which they have an applicant tracking system, and their setup actually helped me a lot to understand, okay, what are the things I'm looking for? Why am I looking for a particular type of person? How would they go about that challenge? I get people to do like a preview or a sort of trial basis to show me what they're able to actually give me in return for what they're looking to do. I think that also gives me an idea about what they're capable of, and then whether or not they'll fit into the culture.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And
like, what message would you send to anyone like wanting to start a business?
Yeah, sure. So I think the thing that my advice for you is to go out and give it a go. Make sure that you test it. Make sure you test the market and you get feedback. Use that feedback to then make sure that you make those refinements to the product. Go back again, and then once you're happy and you've got good feedback, then you can start pushing. I think the whole thing about making sure that you test and try the idea is so important, because it's all about, right product, right time, right fit. If you don't have that, then you're not necessarily ever going to make it either.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say, and don't be ashamed to fail. Like, it happens, and that's okay. But the learnings that you have from those failures are the things that will make you even better next time.
How do you learn from your failures?
I'm constantly learning from my failures. Yeah. Trust me. And I think what I'm doing now is I'm making sure that I get that feedback, and then I put into practice the things that I messed up on.
And what would you say the things you're doing really right are at Social Table? Like, what's working really well or making the brand that it is today?
I think the thing that I'm doing is I'm getting that feedback, like I said, from the customers that are attending the events, to making sure that I can change the product to be better based on their feedback. As a founder, you've got two goals. You're there to like help use that feedback to change and refine the product, but at the same time, you're supposed to lead people into doing something they wouldn't necessarily do. And so being able to get a fine balance between those has been what's made us successful.
Would you say timing in terms of the business is crucial?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so there was a company that did something similar to Social Table about 7 years ago in the US, but 7 years ago, that don't think the challenges that people are facing today in terms of social isolation existed to the extent they do now. And so I think the timing of what we're doing now has allowed us to be really successful.
Nice. And are there any business leaders that you look up to, or mentors, or who helps and guides and inspires you along the way?
Sure. So I've got a number of really key people in my life that I go to for advice constantly. Like, so Vicky Potts or Kelly King. I've got other people outside of that as well in the US who I speak to constantly to help guide my business. So I think those people have been really key in helping me get the business off the ground. Like Dave Coachbeck, for example, in San Francisco, has been an amazing leader that I've spoken to quite a lot.
And what was the biggest learning from him?
Biggest learning from him is so he's got a CTO background, so he's technology based, and his whole idea for me was to just keep pushing. Like, I think one of the things in Australia versus the US, in terms of how you go about getting growth and getting your business out there, in the US it's all about push. In Australia, it's almost about proving the model first and then going about pushing it. Whereas in the States, they've got more of a push first, make sure you get your name out there, and then prove that it works.
I think that's because we're very risk averse in Australia.
We are
like,
very, very risk
know,
averse.
Like US just seems to put money at anything. It's like, here's $1 million, go play around and see how it goes.
Yeah.
To get $1 million in Australia is a big challenge.
It's a very big challenge. You know, absolutely.
Everyone wants to see, like, they almost want to know that they're guaranteed to see their money.
Yeah.
In US, it's like, I'm going to put $1 million into 30 startups.
Yeah.
And I just know that one of those is going to work.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, I'd want to know that every one of those, I've like done my due diligence.
Absolutely. And that's been a challenge I've had because my product isn't necessarily a B2B product. It's a B2C product, which is not necessarily how I found most of the Australian investors are leaning towards. But however, I've proven that I've got good margins. I've proven that it works. I've proven I can make money. And that for me is the steps that I needed to do to then be able to prove that I can do it not only here, but elsewhere in the world as well.
So as a founder, I know that, I mean, we mentioned this before with burnout, but what's your morning routine, or what are the things that you do to keep stable as a founder, keep grounded, you know, make sure your mental health is in order? Yeah. Do you have a practice, or? I
really wish I could say I have something that's routine. But my routine is I don't set an alarm. I wake up when my body wants to wake me up. It's usually around 6:30 or 7 in the morning anyway, which I'm grateful for. If depending on where I'm living, I'll try and watch the sunrise. That's really important to me. That gives me some clarity. And then outside of that, I find that I'd start doing emails first thing in the morning, just so that I can pump out those until like 8 o'clock or 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I'll start sending meetings and calls after that. And then by lunchtime, I go back and do emails again. So I kind of break my day up into blocks. If I don't do that, then I sort of get a little lost as
distracted.
The day goes on. Yeah.
And are there any mindfulness practices that you've implemented yourself, or?
Look, like I really believe in the whole mindfulness philosophy. The things that I'm not very flexible. So yoga is one of those things I'm about as inflexible with my body as I am in my personality. And not so flexible in that sort of stuff. So yoga is not something that I do, but being able to take the time to really be thankful and look at gratitude is one of the things that I'm really, really push for. And I think that has been able to help me understand the things that I do well and the things that I'm really happy for with the business. And then that also shows me some of the shortcomings that we've got, and that's where I sort of focus my time.
Well, it's a practice of, I mean, it teaches you patience, right? Because as a founder, we often want to be here, but we want to be there, but we're here. Yeah. And it that wanting to be there creates a lot of tension, and that, I mean, my observation is that's what actually leads to burnout as a founder. Just that, like, not being patient enough, not letting it kind of take place.
I think one of the other things that I found is actually having a plan as well. So if your goal is, your very end goal is to get up here, you need to understand what each step is that you need to do along the way to get to that point. So breaking it up into blocks, being able to say, okay, well, I need to do this, and this to get to the next stage. And from that, I need to do this and this to get to the next stage. And from that stage, I need to do this, and this to go to the next stage. Once you know what that, or be able to map out that process for you and your business and your business goals, I think that then allows you to start being more focused, because you can start ticking things off.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's like, where would you say your biggest investment of time is in terms of the team, or is it marketing, or like?
Yeah, for sure. So our biggest focus right now is doing marketing, and doing that scaling and growing, getting the word out there about the business. I think from a business model standpoint, I feel like we've worked really hard with some great restaurant partners to be able to get the product to where it is now. And then the other factor is that getting more people knowing about it. So, we look at Facebook and Instagram. We have about 40% of our customers come from that, 25% from Google.
40% of your customers from Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
That's
25% from Google and 25% from word of mouth. So being able to push the word of mouth more so that we can start bringing down the cost we're spending on Facebook and Instagram, I think we'll start helping us.
Are you advertising on those platforms though?
Not necessarily advertising too heavily. It's just being able to create more of a following on those platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a time investment.
It's a time investment because each one of those things takes more time. Whereas I'm using my customers who have had a great experience to be able to push more of their friends along to the events is an easier way for us to get the word of mouth around.
We scale at EasyCompanies through word of mouth. Like once you start building a good product, then the name gets out there. They tell their friends, and then those friends come and use it.
Exactly. And the other thing that we want to start doing as a business is start focusing on our content as well, and making sure that we are giving people sound content that they can use at our product at our events as well.
Like what kind of content would that entail?
So stuff like, how what are the best conversation starters when you first meet people, or looking at how not to be the person who sits there awkwardly at dinner, or looking at how do you strike up a conversation without talking about work, or without talking about how much where you live, etc. So it's all like trying to give people those easy ins and those easy wins that they can see to be able to make it better for them.
Yeah, making sure that everyone leaves, like that everyone gets a part in that kind of experience, right? Exactly.
And that's something that we really focus on at our events, is about being present and making sure that everyone is part of that.
Yeah, nice. Well, look, thanks for joining, Ben. It's are there any other questions at this, or any other things that you'd like to put out there to anyone starting a business?
I like I said, like it's all about hard work and making sure that you do focus on getting those quick wins for yourself to make sure that you know that the product is something that people want and need, and getting feedback is the key to anyone's success.
Yeah. Well, nice. Look, good luck with your journey at Social Table.
Thanks.
And it'd be interesting to see where the next 9 to 12 months goes with this US expansion.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed it goes where we think and believe it can.
Okay,
cool.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks.
Also, if you haven't already, check out our YouTube channel. It's available under the EasyCompanies account, and there'll be a 9 to Survive playlist. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and look forward to seeing you next time.